And now for a bonus, would you like to read to us an excerpt of what was read, inspired by one of those exercises?
Oh, sure. Thank you so much. I would.
Great.
Briefly, let me just briefly tell you that the novel is called Available Light, and it is the story of a traumatized teenage bomber pilot named Isaac Ike Hurd, and Joseph Springer, the Freudian-trained psychiatrist who was trying to heal his amnesia, and a young woman named Ash Bennett, who is a volunteer nurse at the military psychiatric hospital where he's being treated. He's being treated actually in a military psychiatric hospital about 15 minutes from where I live in St. Petersburg, Florida. It's a resort hotel. There was a jazz age resort hotel that the military turned into a military psychiatric hospital. So it's a great setting. So just to set up the scene, Ike and a fellow pilot are sitting in, they lived on these English bases in Nissen huts, which were these metal containers flipped on their end. And they're talking about, well, they're responding to the loss of one of their friends. When this is all over, I'm going to write a book too, Perry Metcalf told Ike one afternoon. They had just returned from a brutal mission that claimed 3 planes, including Cooper's, with 2 more missing. They sat on their bunks in a Nissen hut, a huge barrel built with steel ribs cut in half, pressed into a concrete slab, and painted the color of dried blood. A door and 2 rectangular windows cut into the front looked like the misshapen face of a Halloween pumpkin. They called it the frozen coffin. 9 other pilots had shared the cramped space when Ike arrived in England in the fall of 1943. The beds were hard, and despite a stove set in the middle, on winter nights, they drew their wool-lined flight jackets around them. During the brief English summer, they baked, and no matter the season, they bitched. Cooper complained that the chorus of blustering, bragging, betting voices ricocheting off the iron walls made it impossible for him to read or write. Now, Ike and Perry Metcalf were the only ones left. They finished divvying up Cooper's belongings. Ike took his Old Spice and the bulky sweater that he brought back from a 48-hour to Dublin to meet the parents of Maeve, the red-haired, green-eyed beauty he'd planned to marry. Perry snatched up Cooper's thick wool socks and an armful of the novels that their friend, who spent all of his time scribbling stories, sucked in like oxygen. When he wasn't writing his novel, the rangy Southerner read on his bunk, in the mess hall, the briefing and ready rooms, and even in the cockpit waiting for takeoff. He always carried one to the can. They flipped for his Omega Speedmaster. Why don't I feel anything? Ike asked himself after he'd won the watch. Not guilt or grief or disgust. Suddenly he pictured his mother in the kitchen back home, her apron and hands dusted with flour, the fragrance of ripe blueberries bubbling on the stove. You should return the boy's things to his family, she said. She took his face in his hands. The flour felt smooth on his cheeks. Isaac, we didn't raise you to be callous. What has happened to you? If she had pressed him, he would have told her that 6 months of missions had stripped him of the ability to feel, to experience everyday emotions that made humans charitable, thoughtful, loving, or bitter, that made them different from the cows he milked back on the farm. So what are you going to call this book of yours? Perry held Cooper's safety razor. He stroked his stubbled chin, running his index finger under his sharp patrician nose. Let me ruminate on it, sport. Get the old thinking cap on. His family owned the biggest newspaper in Providence, Rhode Island. Perry, who was expected to take over the company after the war, was working as a police reporter before he was drafted, learning the business from the ground up. The cop beat had rubbed off. A Harvard grad, a sought-after dance partner during the season in Newport, elegant in his bespoke dress greens tailored on Seville Row, he chewed noxious cigars out of the corner of his mouth and talked like a character out of a Damon Runyon novel. Give me a minute, bub, will you? He lay on back on his bunk, stretched his hands behind his neck. The frozen coffin groaned. The iron making popping sounds as the summer heat expanded the ribs. Ike wondered, should he write Cooper's parents? But how could he tell them the way their son's plane had spiraled to the earth after night fighters came at the southern bell from 3 sides over Bremen? She trailed ominous plumes of smoke from 3 engines. Not a single parachute emerged from the metal chrysalis before it plowed into a field and erupted in an orange, red, and white fireball and a mushroom cloud of devilish black smoke. Cooper sat up, eyes gleaming. Climbing towards the sun, he said, my favorite part of flying. You pull back in that throttle, you pierce the clouds, makes you feel like a god. You know what I mean, sport? Best part of it, Ike said. And that's a hell of a title, sport. They grinned at each other and turned away as their eyes filled with tears. The hut fell silent.
That's wonderful. That's beautiful.
Does it have voice?
It has voice. It definitely has voice. It has a voice. And I love hearing you read it in your voice too. It's fun. It's fun to hear that.
Well,
I can hardly wait to read the whole thing now. Come on, get cracking.
I'm doing the best I can.
I'm sorry.
I would not have written that without your book.
Wow.
I
Okay.
would not have written it. I would not have written it.
That means a lot.
Your book will infuse it. And I already have a file that has acknowledgments, and you're already on it.
Bless you. Thank you, Chip. Thanks for sharing the excerpt with us. Thanks for sharing your thoughts.
My pleasure.
Okay. I think we're cut. All right. Fantastic. Oh man. That's really lovely. I can't tell you. I'm delighted to hear that. I mean, I know you're a good writer, of course, but fiction's such a different thing. And you just had me really interested and really engaged in that. And there is a voice. Yeah. And the way you spun out the details, it's fantastic. The telling details that you've chosen are beautiful. Yeah.
But actually, if I go back and look at it and see the influence of your book on it, it's the stuff about him remembering and thinking about what his mother would say. And
that was really powerful. Yeah.
If pressed, he would say he's empty.
Yeah.
And then at the end, their eyes filling with tears, and they turn away from each other. Yeah. That's what the exercise produced. I mean, in a way, the other stuff is rendering. That's what I think of fiction, that you render. Yeah. Yeah. To create hopefully a cinematic, engaging thing. But the voice thing, it was really, really useful. Useful is an understatement. That means wow. I wrote 1,200 more than 1,200 words, 2 sections, and I wouldn't have written them without your book. Wow, you've just made my month. You really have. You just have made my month. I can't even tell you. Not even day. Day's not. Yeah. When the sales come in. Yeah. We'll see. So, do I have your most recent address? I think I do. Right. 20. No, I have a new one. Oh, okay. Well, give me that. Yeah. It's 211 Catalan, Catalan Boulevard. Okay. St. Petersburg, Florida, 33704. Great. I am just waiting on the envelopes that are big enough to ship a book out to you. So from Avery? No, I just went on Amazon and found some eco-friendly recycled something, but they're just the envelopes I had that like the book fit, but it was like bursting at the seams. I'm like, that's not gonna make it, I need something a little sturdier. So I just ordered, I don't know whose they are, but I ordered some envelopes and they are supposed to get here tomorrow, I think. And then So it's not ready for pre-order yet, is it? Or is it? So it is actually, hang on a sec. It is actually ready for pre-order. In fact, I'm just going to stop this recording here.